The house was quiet in the way that meant trouble was being prepared somewhere upstairs. Harriet Vale heard it the moment she crossed the hall at Halberstead House. The absence of the porter's footstep, the lowered voices behind the morning room door, the particular hush that only ever fell over Cavendish Square when the Dowager Duchess had given an instruction. A footman she did not know stood at the foot of the stairs, watching her, and looked away the instant she met his eyes. She did not stop. She crossed the marble in her plain gray gown with the basket of mended gloves on her arm, smiling at the housekeeper, and turned up toward the countess's apartments. The morning room door, on the floor below, had closed too softly. The dowager closed doors that way when she did not wish her nephew to hear. Harriet had been 10 years in Countess Lavrentieva's service companion, friend, English shield in English rooms, and she had learned the sound of a great house preparing to ruin a quiet woman. She tapped, entered, set the basket down. Countess Sofia Ivanovna Lavrentieva sat at the window with a Russian book in her lap, the spring sun in her hair. She was 38, slender, with the carriage of a woman who had once been at the center of a more glittering court and had with quiet deliberation walked out of it. "Lord Branner is coming at 4, Sophia said, without turning. "He asked for the small drawing room. I told the housekeeper yes." "You sound almost frightened." "I am almost happy," Sophia said. "It is the same thing in this house." Harriet smoothed the gloves on the table. She did not say anything yet about the strange footman or the way the second-best silver had been brought out into the hall. Sophia would not be afraid this afternoon. The work of being afraid for her had long ago been given to Harriet. She listened, through the floor, to the murmur of a house at its quiet labor. 10 years before, in St. Petersburg, the same hush had come on a different room. Harriet had been 22 then, governess to a British attaché's daughter, a thin Englishwoman in a borrowed shawl at a country house party outside the city. The snow had been packed up to the lower windows. A salon had filled, after dinner, with the slow heat of a long candlelit evening, and a letter had been brought in, on a silver tray, and laid on a small table by the fire. It was a letter, the hostess had explained, that the friends of a young princess, a sweet creature, truly wished to have signed. There had been talk. The princess had been seen too often with a man, not her husband. The family wished it ended. The letter would not accuse her. It would only request that the gentleman concerned absent himself from the city until midsummer. It was, the hostess said, for the princess's own protection. Pens had moved around the room. Names had been added without speech, the way names are added when a house has decided. Harriet, in her corner with her embroidery, had watched the tray come closer and felt the cold of the windows on the back of her neck. It had reached a young countess in dark green at the Faya Sophia, then 26, recently widowed, newly the head of a small house and the guardian of a younger brother. She had been the brightness of the salon that winter. She had also been the princess's particular friend. She had read the letter through once. She had set it back upon the tray with a hand that did not tremble. "No," she had said. The hostess had explained again, more gently. There had been a silence. The countess had spoken into it. "The princess has done nothing yet that any of you would not forgive in your sons. Sign it if you must." "I will not." The tray had moved past her. The princess had not been saved. By midsummer, her name had been carried out of every drawing room in the city, and Sophia's had gone with it. People who had stayed her friend had been advised, very politely, to be less particular. Sophia had paid what others had not been asked to pay. When her younger brother's allowance was cut by a powerful uncle, she had taught herself to live on less. When an English governess turned out for a slighter refusal of her own, had nowhere to go, she had given Harriet a room and a place at her table without a question. That winter Harriet had learned what a great house cost a friend who refused to help it. The morning at Halberstead grew older. The Dowager Duchess did not send for her, which was its own message. At 11:15, Mr. Carrick the steward came up to Harriet on the landing with a small bundle of household accounts and an expression of unusual courtesy. "Miss Vale, when you have a moment, the Dowager wishes a word." He did not say what about. Harriet went down with her hands, quiet at her sides. The Dowager was at her writing desk, in lilac, a tray at her elbow holding 2 letters, one already sealed, one not yet. She did not stand. She gestured Harriet to a chair she did not intend her to take. "You have been in this house since Easter," the Dowager said. "And you are not stupid, so I shall not pretend. The question of Lord Branner displeases my nephew. Lord Branner is, I am told, a man of sentiment. The Countess has neither dowry nor connection in this country worth the speaking. My nephew is a duke. He has given her the protection of this house this season, for the sake of an old promise. He has not consented to see her installed by marriage on the edge of his name." There it was. The sound under the floor. Harriet kept her hands open in her lap. "There is a letter," the Dowager said, lifting the unsealed sheet. "A private letter, not for the newspapers, only for 3 drawing rooms. It says that during the Countess's residence in this house, certain sums went missing from the second still room, and certain pieces from a cabinet of small jewels. It will not, of course, be acted upon. It will only be known. Lord Branner will hear of it within a week. He will withdraw. There will be no scandal, because there will be no marriage to scandalize. The Countess will leave this house with her name. She will leave it without him." The Dowager smoothed the paper. "All this requires," she said, "is a name beneath the account. A name from inside the house. The Duke must not see it, of course. He prefers to believe his houses are clean. I had thought, Mr. Carrick. I have thought again. The household will look to you, Miss Vale, as the person closest to her. The world will believe what you sign." She lifted her pen and turned the sheet round so that the blank line lay open toward Harriet's hand. "My nephew will be relieved," she said softly. "You will be provided for. The Countess will, after a brief disappointment, return to her own people where she belongs. Everyone will be very kind. Add your name. Miss Vale, and the household is at peace by nightfall." Harriet did not put out her hand for the pen. She looked instead at the second letter, the one already sealed. The seal was the Dowager's. The direction, written in a neat hand she recognized as Mr. Carrick's, was to Lord Branner. "You have already written to him," she said. "I have written," the Dowager said. "What will be sent when your name is on this one? Not before." The clock on the mantel struck the quarter. Somewhere below, a door opened and closed, and a man's step moved across the hall toward the library, the Duke himself. Then, come down from his rooms. He would not be told. He had been managed all his life by women who knew how to keep their work quiet. Harriet looked at the blank line and thought, very clearly, of a tray moving past a fire in a Petersburg salon 10 years before. She thought of the princess whose name had been carried out of the drawing rooms, and of the young countess in dark green who had not signed and had paid for not signing in every winter since. She thought of the room Sophia had given her, with the green curtain and the small icon of St. Nicholas, and of the hand laid very briefly over hers the first night, and the words, "Times you are safe here. Harriet, sleep." She thought of Lord Branner, who looked at her friend as though looking were a kind of prayer. "I will not sign the account as it is written," she said. The Dowager's mouth tightened. "I will sign a different letter," Harriet said. "I will write it now. I will say in it that the sums from the still room and the pieces from the cabinet went from this house, in my keeping, and by my hand, while the Countess was in the country at Easter, and that I am leaving this morning and will not return, and that the matter is at an end. I will sign it in my own name. You will send it where you please. You will not send the other. And you will burn what your nephew's steward has already written to Lord Branner." The Dowager stared at her. "You would ruin yourself," she said at last. For her. I would, Harriet said. Her voice did not shake. She did it for a princess once, who never thanked her. I am only finishing the account. She wrote the letter at the Dowager's desk in a small, clear hand. She named no one but herself. She said only that she had been long in the countess's confidence and had once, in a moment of foolish need, taken what was not hers. That her conscience had grown louder than her cowardice. That she was leaving the house and London the same day. She signed Harriet Mary Vale and laid the pen down. The Dowager read it through twice. Whatever she had expected of the morning, this had not been on the list. She rang for Mr. Carrick, gave him the sealed letter to Lord Branner, and said, "Burn this in front of me." He obeyed. The Dowager watched the seal blacken in the grate and turned back to her desk. "You may go to your friend," she said. Her voice was thin. "You will be out of this house by 3 o'clock. We will tell the world what you have asked us to tell it. I am, you understand, not your enemy. I am only the keeper of a house." "I know," Harriet said. "So was I." She went upstairs. She did not tell Sophia yet. She packed her trunk herself, the green dress folded uppermost, because Sophia had once said the color was kind to her, and wrote a short note to her brother in Devon. She was buttoning her traveling cloak when she heard the step on the stair. The Duke himself opened the door without knocking, and stood in it. He was a tall man, broad in the shoulder, with the dark hair and severe features the print sellers liked, and the steady look his servants did not. He had a letter in his hand. The hand was not steady. "Miss Vale," he said. "Your Grace, you will explain this to me." He held the page out. It was hers. The Dowager had given it to him after all, or he had asked for it, or someone in his house had at last grown tired of being silent in his rooms. Sentence by sentence, Harriet looked at him steadily. "I have explained it, Your Grace. The matter is at an end." "It is not at an end. There were no sums missing from the still room, and no pieces from the cabinet. I asked the housekeeper before I came up. She has been with this house 31 years, and she does not lie to me. So I will ask you again." He stepped into the room. "Whose name, Miss Vale, were you protecting?" She did not answer. "You will not say it," he said. "Very well, I will. My aunt wrote a letter this morning that would have driven the Countess Lavrentieva out of London by Saturday, and Lord Branner out of her drawing-room by Friday, and she meant me not to see it. She has done me that kindness once or twice before. She did not expect that the person closest to the Countess in my house would write a false confession to take the cost onto herself. Neither did I. I am—" He stopped and breathed and began again. "I am not in the habit of being shown how a thing is done in my own house by the woman who mends the gloves." He set the page down on the trunk. "Unpack," he said. "Your Grace, unpack Miss Vale. The Countess will marry Lord Branner from this house, with my blessing on the 1st of June. My aunt will write a different letter, a true one this time, and sign it herself. And she will sit in this room and read it aloud to me before she puts it in the post. And you," he was looking at her now in a way she had never been looked at in her life, "you will not leave the protection of this house unless it is on the arm of a man who has properly asked you, and the man, Miss Vale, has not yet been so fortunate." She put a hand to the back of the chair to steady herself. She had not eaten. The clock on the landing struck a half hour, and she did not know which. "You do not know me, Your Grace," she said. "I know that you went into the morning room this morning and took a ruin onto your own name, to spare a friend who once took a ruin onto hers, to spare a princess who was not even kind. I know the shape of the thing now. I have lived in great houses all my life, and never seen it done." His mouth moved as if he had forgotten how it worked. "I should very much like to be properly acquainted." They walked out together into the small drawing room at 4, when Lord Branner came. The Countess Lavrentieva crossed the floor to him, without knowing yet what had nearly been done. She only smiled, and gave him both her hands, and was, for the first time in any room Harriet had ever seen her in, not afraid. Lord Branner went down on one knee on the carpet that the Dowager had chosen herself, and asked his question, and was answered yes. The Dowager sat very upright in the corner. She had been reading aloud, in this room, 10 minutes earlier, in front of her nephew, a letter she had not wished to write. It had been a short reading. She bore it as women of her generation bore such things, with a straight back, and a small dry voice, and the long memory of having once herself been young enough to refuse, and not done it. She did not look at Harriet. She did not look at Sophia. She would, in her own time, be kind to both of them, because she was not, in the end, a cruel woman. She had only been the keeper of a house. The Duke stood at the window where Sophia had stood that morning with her Russian book. He did not look at Lord Branner. He was looking at Harriet, who had pinned her hair plainly, as always, and had put on the green dress, because there had been no time to repack it, and was holding herself very straight against the door frame, because she did not yet know what to do with her hands. He crossed the room to her, and offered his arm. "Miss Vale," he said, low enough that no one else could hear. "The Countess is safely claimed. We may now, perhaps, attend to the matter that remains. May I take you in to tea?" Harriet laid her hand on his sleeve. She was 28, and tired, and an English gentlewoman of small fortune, and she had spent 10 years standing between her friend and the quiet cruelty of well-kept rooms. She let herself, for the first time in any of those years, be the one who was taken in. The chestnut tree at the window moved in a small May wind. Somewhere in the house a clock struck 5. The keeper of a great house had been overruled in her own morning room. A Russian countess had been let into the only kindness London had ever offered her, and a quiet Englishwoman who had been ready to walk out of every door she knew was, instead, being walked with great care through one. Sophia turned her head from Lord Branner's shoulder and saw them. She did not say anything. She only smiled. The way she had once smiled at a tray moving past her fire and looked for that moment. The way a woman looks when a price she has long ago paid is at last, by another's hand, made good. The Duke covered Harriet's hand on his sleeve with his own, and did not let it go.